Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July 19th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're trying to figure out who won the media contest between the ACC and the SEC.
Yeah.
You know, football is ready to kick off down here, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, you know, they have competing media days and stuff down here in the South.
Yeah.
And you know, ironically, the SEC's media day was more exciting than the ACC was more exciting than the SEC.
How's that?
So I'm wondering, well, the coaches, you know, there are some coaches say some off-the-wall things, so you know they drink moonshine.
Yeah, you know.
So, I mean, and they did not get off of it in time enough to go to the press conference.
Yeah.
So they kind of slurred their speech a little bit, said some things that were unorthodox.
Yep.
Still got people scratching their head. And you know, somebody like me, I'm scratching myself.
That's funny, Big Z.
But, you know, it's love and happiness when it comes to football in the South.
Yeah, love and happiness. And speaking of love and happiness, I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. I know there's a lot of talk about the footballs here. I mean, football still doesn't kick off for a while. I think the Hall of Fame game is going to be I think August the 2nd. The 5th, okay, first week of August coming up, and on a Thursday night, I believe. A lot of people looking forward to that, but I still think about something. I was reaching out to the Pac-12 commissioner yesterday, and there's so many people that are excited for college football, but Big C, last I checked, it doesn't start for another month, and there's something about the media thing. So how much more media can they milk out of each other, and why is it so much more serious down south? I think it really is than it is out here where it's a little bit more laid back in the West Coast. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, actually, it starts in 6 weeks, Charlton, you know, from tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, is the opening day in college football. But, you know, when you think about how fans sit around and spend the off-season talking nothing but football.
Yeah.
I mean, we have basketball going on, we have baseball going on, Charlton, but football still resonates in the conversation.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, people are walking around with the team emblems on their cars, on their bags, you know, on their wallets and purses, license plates. You know, that's something you don't get on the West Coast.
No.
You get the team affiliation regardless of the state you live in. You can live in Alabama and being a Florida graduate, you can have a plate with Florida on there, although you don't want to leave your car in the dark spot.
Yeah.
You know, and any other state in the South, Charlton, you can have your alumni affiliation on an alternate state tag, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's how big football is in the South, and everything lends from that. You know, who you're going to marry, you know, you know, what you're going to wear to church, color-wise and stuff.
Yep.
And depending on, you know, especially on Sunday, church is always out by 12 o'clock on Sunday.
So they can see kickoff.
Because you got to be home for the 1 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw this movie. It was called Something About Mary, and it had Brett Favre was in there. And there was I think Cameron Diaz, who actually grew up in Bakersfield, California, Central California City. And Bakersfield, the hometown of the late Frank Gifford, also played at Bakersfield High School. I think they're the second most winningest high school football program in California. Well, I met a pastor about 7 to 8 years ago. He was from the South, but he also, when he came from the South, Mississippi down there someplace, and he came out to California, he landed in Bakersfield. And would you believe, now Bakersfield is known for high school football. There are times when they would get about 23,000 fans for their section championship football games called the Central Section. Now, this is high school. 23,000 is a lot of people. A small crowd might be about 10,000 fans. Would you believe when he came from the South, he said they really don't celebrate football here much, do they? And I said, that's a huge crowd for a high school, 10,000 small, 23,000 large. What are we missing that the South has even at the high school level, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, children are born with a football in their hand in the South. I mean, basketball is a secondary thing here. Baseball is almost non-thought of.
Yeah.
It's just that it's become a religion. You know, it's a steeple. You talk about touchdown Jesus at Notre Dame.
Yep.
Well, I think God hangs out in the South. So,
Yep.
I guess you're looking at the Suns version of football.
Yep.
When you look at touchdown Jesus at Notre Dame. Because,
Yeah.
I don't care what restaurant you go into, Charlton, what coffee shop,
Yeah.
at any time of the year. I mean, it's amazing when you see 70, 80-year-old men sitting there can hardly sit up straight in their chair.
Yeah.
But you say something bad about their beloved football team,
Yep.
you got to take all the little knives and forks off the table.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
Big C.
we're talking about threatening events going on in these facilities, Charlton. But
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. When you think about this, when you always talk about how it galvanizes.
Yeah.
It does galvanize in the South, Charlton.
Yeah.
Football galvanizes people, whether they're adversaries or of the same, disposition on a
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
It galvanizes people, Charlton, but in a non-violent way. You can be opposing somebody and be their best friend.
Yeah.
That's the amazing part about football in the South.
Yeah. There's
Is that you have neighbors, and one side of the fence is one color, the other side of the fence is the other color.
Yeah.
Got flags in the yard and everything.
Yeah.
And on game day, they don't talk to each other.
No.
The rest of the week, they're sipping coffee early in the morning.
And that's husband and wife, from what I understand. There's a movie called Friday Night Lights, and that's based out of Texas, some high schools down in Texas. But I know, just talking to an old pastor friend of mine, there's some schools down in Oklahoma, one's called Tulsa. I think it's called Tulsa Union. And then there's another one called Jinx, Oklahoma. Now, this is down there in Oklahoma. Their state championship games, I think they play them at the University of Tulsa. Now, the crowd's 40,000. 40,000 fans for a state championship football games between Jinx High School and Union High School of Tulsa, Oklahoma. So when my pastor friend came out to California, one of the most storied high school football programs in the state of California in Bakersfield High School, the Drillers, they were headed by Coach Dwight Goldie Griffith, who won, I think, over 8 state championships back in the day. But 40,000 fans, of course, when you see a stadium that has 23,000 fans, you go, where are the people? But that shows you how fanatical Big C. I think there's some college programs that don't put 40,000 fans in the seat, and that's college, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's across the country. I mean, we're used to seeing the grandiosest programs, across, especially down here in the South, Charlton.
Yeah.
You're hard-pressed to find a small stadium. The elite programs down here all have minimum 80,000 seats and exceed 100,000 on many other occasions. But I want to go back to that Bakersfield story that you were talking about, about the attendance down there. There was a great movie that was done back in the late 80s, early 90s. It was called The Best of Times.
Oh, yeah.
And it starred the late Robin Williams and Kurt Russell in this movie. And they talked about Bakersfield High School football, and I think their rival in that movie was Taft High School. And I love this movie, Charlton, because what it was alumni coming back to replay a game that they thought they should have won some 30 years prior to that, Charlton. It showed how bodies have changed and the mentalities have changed, Charlton. But, it just shows how football transcends decades and generations. Is that, your children, for the most part, in a lot of these small towns, go to your alma mater. And so you see generations sitting in the stands. You see grandparents, great-grandparents, fathers, uncles, aunts, all of these sitting in the stands cheering for that same family lineage, Charlton. And we get a lot of that down here in the South. But, that's what's great about sports, is that it has a commonality to soothe the toughest of people, Charlton. And it makes everybody at the end of a hard-fought contest. Think about this, especially with professional athletes. and even college athletes, Charlton,
Yeah.
what's the first thing they do? They go and congratulate each other.
They sure do.
You know, they're very formidable foes for 3 hours, but at the end of that 3 hours, they still understand the human factor.
Yep.
Is that, you know, we went out, both sides had a common goal, was to win the game.
Yeah.
Only one side won, Charlton, but at the end, you showed your appreciation to your opponent and your respect.
Yep, that's very true. And I notice a lot of the times, too, especially with this time of year, a lot of people, especially with the ESPYs last night, there's a huge focus on what a professional athlete does. Obviously, some of the college players, what they've had last night, I thought it was a really good show, especially the Me Too movement, the women standing up saying no more. And so hopefully a lot of young women and men will gravitate to that and realize that high schools is a place of innocence. And when you have these small towns, my friend's a pastor for a long time, and when we talk, we talk about God, we talk about the church, but he lights up as much when we talk about football as he lights up when he says it's time to pay the tithe, Big C. Those are the times that when the pastor talks about pay the tithe so you can get God his money, that's when they really light up. And outside of that in football, I really enjoyed those conversations. But I want to throw it back to something that happened last night watching the ESPYs, and you think about quarterback, one of the greatest quarterbacks that never won a Super Bowl in Kelly for the Buffalo Bills, what he's going through. And I thought everybody's been through something, whether it's health or money or the loss of a loved one. But he stood there on the stage last night, and he had John Elway, and he had Dan Marino, and it's just what you talked about, Big C. When they played the game, they all tried to win, and Kelly thanked John Elway for getting 2 Super Bowls among those 3 great quarterbacks. He's the only one. They've all been to a Super Bowl, but Elway's the only one to win. But that thing that he talked about with some of his teammates from back in the day that went to those 4 Super Bowls, they still communicate to this day, and he hasn't thrown a touchdown in 20 years, Big C. Talk about how they stay close together. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you talk about a fraternity, that's what professional athletes possess, is a common fraternity, mutual respect. You communicate over the years, Charlton, even after the game is long left, you know, the pants that you used to wear.
Yeah.
You know? And so, you know, but what you gain, and that's what I talked about after an event, is that players get together and congratulate each other, talk about family, children, you know, what they're doing, you know, in the off season, what they're doing during the season.
Yeah.
That's something that's long-lasting, Charlton, because the game is a fleeting moment in the span of life.
Yeah.
But it's the relationships that you build, the brotherhood that you possess when you're playing sports, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they're your family. You know, you're with these guys a minimum of 6 months out of the year. Now with this year-round training, Charlton, generally about 9 months out of the year.
Yep.
So you spend more time with your teammates than you do with other family members when you look at it in totality. So when you know everything about these guys, you know about, you know, children that they have, you know about relatives and their families, Charlton. You understand all the things about them. And so when Kelly, you know, spoke from the heart last night when he's talking about Marino and he's talking about Elway, about how these guys drove him and he drove them.
Yeah.
You know, the inspiration that they gave me, Teddy. When you think about Jim Kelly, Charlton, he's in the history books.
Oh, yeah.
He's the only quarterback to complete 4 consecutive Super Bowls.
Wow.
You know that he went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. He didn't win, but think about this, Charlton. How many quarterbacks have gone their entire NFL career and never had a chance to compete in the Super Bowl? You can look in the NFL Hall of Fame, Charlton, and find quarterbacks that did not compete in a Super Bowl.
Yes.
So when you think about what Kelly's feats were, getting his team to that point, and a couple of games wasn't his fault that they did not win.
No.
You know, everybody's always going to say the quarterback, you know, win or lose, you know.
Yep.
But Kelly did all the things right in the Super Bowls. He did all the things right in his career. You think about when he left the University of Miami. He was the Bills' #1 draft pick. Back then, that's when the USFL existed, Charlton.
Yeah.
He went to the Houston Gamblers and played for the Houston Gamblers, coached by Jack Pardee, a Pro Football Hall of Famer, you know, of the Los Angeles Rams and Washington Redskins.
Yes.
And he also coached in the NFL and the USFL. But he created this offense for Jim Kelly down there, Charlton. Well, he didn't create it. He brought in the run and shoot.
Yes.
Brought in Mouse Davis, a very formidable offensive mind in college football out of Portland State back in the 70s.
Yep.
And he brought him in, and this is how Kelly developed as a quarterback, using a lot of diminutive receivers and passing for over 5,000 yards in this league, Charlton. He was the first American quarterback in the United States to pass for over 5,000 yards in a single season.
Wow.
The first. So Jim Kelly has a lot of accolades about himself. He's in the toughest fight of his life now, Charlton, with the jaw cancer that he's had. And he has fought this battle admirably, Charlton. You know, a lot of people would just give up. But being a competitive athlete that Jim Kelly was,
yep,
he has been inspiration for so many Americans, men, women, and children, Charlton. And under the auspices of what Jimmy V said, don't give up. Don't ever give up.
I think that's very well said.
Jim Kelly personifies that, Charlton.
I think that's very well said, Big C. And for a lot of the youth, you know, when we do Big C Sports, and we'll be going to TV in the fall, covering every sport on TV the same way we do now, some sit-down interviews with people who do more than just play the game. It's about your family, your faith, your fun, your community, what you do after the game. Also for people out there, you know, we want to help the millennials, whether it's internships with universities all over the country, helping people get into broadcast. And I think that's phenomenal. And that's offered to Big C Sports. It's not something that we do on our own. So as that comes into more fruition, things are being worked on as we speak. What I love about what Kelly said last night, and it coincides with the Me Too movement in sports. Sports is like a religion. It really is a religion, Big C. I was just talking to a producer today, a TV producer today. We talked about the religion of sports. You know, pastors talk more about sports and the tithe, and there's nothing wrong with the tithe because it takes money to make things happen. But that thing that you talked about, that brotherhood, it's one of the rare industries where you can bring people together from different walks of life, and to hear Kelly talk about the physical things. Everyone we know in life at some time is going through something. It could be health, it could be financial, it could be your relationship. But what do kids need to see? Does it really benefit a kid to hear that some athlete's making $400 million and he bats .214, or that some agent is trying to get him $400 million for batting .214? Or does it really help more people, Big C, when someone like Kelly stands up and said, yeah, I'm going through some challenges, but I still get up. I'm going through challenges, but he talked about his family, how his kids are there for him. He's going through some challenges. He lamented about how his father told him, you get knocked down, so what? Get up. That's what a lot of kids need to hear, more so than is LeBron James going to buy a house in L.A. Yeah, he has them. But that's what I love about what he mentioned last night. And I thought for one of the first times last night, whether it's the Me Too movement or whether it's Kelly talking about what he talked about, don't give up. That's what I love about Big C Sports. We rarely read you who won a game. I mean, we do that too. But I rather want to know what's behind you. You know, what really drives you? You've known so many people over the years, Big C, that gone through different things. But what can the kids take, the millennials take, from what Kelly talked about last night? Because he didn't run off the stats that you ran off. He talked about what's going on in life. What can the young people learn from that, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you speak about Jim Kelly, Charlton, he's such an iconic individual when you look at him. You know, people look at what he's going through in life right now. He had a young son, Hunter, who passed away several years ago, Charlton, who was born with birth defects. But Jim Kelly had his son with him at all times, and he often spoke of Hunter as his inspiration.
Yes.
You know, he was bound to a wheelchair, and he could not breathe on his own, and, fortunately enough, because Kelly was in the NFL, he had all this NFL insurance.
Yes.
That helped prolong his son's life. But when you talk about a man going through adversity and not looking at his own self, Charlton, but he had a young son that never really got a chance to do the things that his father had done, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that drove Jim Kelly to be the best that he was every day, not to let his son down. And in not letting his sons down, he didn't let his fans down, Charlton.
Yeah.
And this is the way he has fought this battle of his own, Charlton, every day. Jim Kelly is such an inspirational figure that you can never say enough kind words about this man, Charlton, with all of what he's had to endure as a parent and as an individual.
Yeah.
And that's an inspiration to young people. Don't be selfish, because the sports shows that are on television, that all they look to do is talk about a contract.
Yep.
How much a guy is getting, how much this guy signed for 4 years. This guy is holding out. This guy has a no-trade clause. This guy is not going to play because of money. This is where sports has lost its focus. Yes, nobody plays the game for free. No owner possesses a team for free. But when the sports program tells the youth of America the only thing that's important is the amount of money that you make.
Amen.
Not the content of your character, not the integrity that you possess, but how big a contract you can get.
That's true.
That you're going to hold out, that you want a long-term deal. They're going to franchise you. You're going to sit out because they're paying you $17 million to play 16 games, so you're going to sit out. This is the message that's being sent to the youth of America.
Yep.
This is about greed. I was having a conversation with a gentleman today, and we were talking finances in the NFL and even in sports.
Yeah.
When we looked, he was talking about how much LeBron has signed for. I said, yeah, he got $154 million for 4 years.
Yep.
I said, do you realize not that long ago, in the early 80s, Magic Johnson signed a 25-year, $25 million contract, which blew up the sports world. Everyone was saying, how could they pay Magic Johnson $25 million over 25 years?
I remember that.
It was an unprecedented contract in the NBA.
Yeah.
Now, when you break that down in contrast to LeBron's contract, you divide 154 by 4. It'll take me a while to do the math. You could probably
you can
do
Google
the
it.
$37 million a year quicker than I can.
Yeah.
But here it is. LeBron James will make more money next year than Magic Johnson's first Lakers roster that won a championship.
Wow.
No one understands that, Charlton. When they look how sports has resonated in American society. You go back and you look at the Los Angeles Lakers when they beat the Philadelphia 76ers, Charlton.
Yep.
Their total roster salary was not half of what LeBron James will make next year.
That's incredible.
That's how sports has grown.
Yeah. And so what I love about seeing the ESPYs last night, it's not the fact, you feel like you could relate to people. And during that time that Kelly had that wonderful speech, a lachrymose speech, brought a lot of people to tears. When I saw the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I still think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the best NBA basketball player in the universe. Look at his numbers. The skyhook, I don't know, the skyhook is something that no one else can emulate. A lot of people can do the crossover, the European step, the Euro step, all that stuff. 3-point shootout, the slam dunk contest. No one's ever mastered the sky hook. That's the sky hook that he made famous. But to see him stand up last night, now see, he played basketball, never played football, but he applauded a football player because he spoke from the heart. And I just appreciate that, and all the people that make sports happen. Just be grateful that we have something that can bring people together of different faiths, religions, etc. I do want to get your thoughts, though, on best male athlete, Alexander Ovechkin. Now, we talked about that yesterday, how he's not playing the sport that Americans really embrace the way we do football, basketball, and baseball. But I still don't know if he had that cup with him on the stage, if he still had Lord Stanley Cup. You know how some guys double park when they got that big Escalade? They can park between the lines, but they want to park on the lines, Pixie, unless they're in places like Milwaukee. You get in trouble if you're Milwaukee parking on double lines. But Ovechkin to get voted best male athlete of the year, he's not an athlete in the form of, say, a LeBron James. He's not an athlete the way, if you look at some of the best football players out there. But on the hockey, on the ice, he's a great athlete. A lot of people don't know his story, but what I think he should do is at least endorse Campbell's Chunky Soup that you can sip through the straw, Bixie, because you brought it up yesterday, and I'm sure we'll see him sucking on some Campbell's Soup sometime in the near future, Bixie. Your thoughts?
Well, if nothing else, he'll get a milkshake commercial because he does work on ice.
Yep.
So when you sit here and you say Ovechkin is not the athlete of a LeBron or a football player,
Yeah.
I beg to differ.
Oh, really?
See, when you look at Alexander Ovechkin, he stands 6'4",
Yeah.
about 230 pounds, okay? He goes to work on ice with knives taped to his shoes, okay?
You don't think LeBron can play with knives on ice, Bixie?
I
Is that
don't
what you
think
said?
that LeBron can run around with the speed that Ovechkin can on ice. Okay, so I'm going to give advantage to Ovechkin. You can find me a football player, Charlton, that can compete with him.
Yeah.
Ironically, J.J. Watt can. But the average football player, when you talk about the elitist football player, these skill position players, Charlton,
Yeah.
they cannot do what Ovechkin can do.
Yeah.
So when you think about hockey players, Charlton, and people don't think that they're as good athletes as the guy you see on the hardwood or on the grass surface, Charlton,
Yeah.
they can transcend to that surface, Charlton, where that basketball or football player can't, vice versa. They can't go out and play the game full speed on ice.
Yeah.
But that hockey player can run on grass, and he can run on that hardwood floor.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the better athlete, and I had many friends that are professional hockey players, Charlton,
Yeah.
back when we were all active.
Yeah.
And they used to challenge me all the time. They're like, hey, come on out here.
Challenge you to the shine or to the ice? Which one do they challenge? To the shine drinking or the ice skating? I just want to know which one.
Just come on out on the ice. You might be tough in some shoulder pads, but we got shoulder pads on too.
Yeah.
And see how you fare on some ice. So I'm going to go with Ovechkin because I look at his body of work, Charlton.
Yeah.
4-time MVP in the NHL. Finally getting his team to the pinnacle of winning Lord Stanley's Cup.
Yeah.
A rare feat in all of professional sports, Charlton, to hoist a championship trophy.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate pinnacle of what every athlete wants. And when you talk about money now and people saying, well, he would have got more money signing here or more money signing there.
Yeah.
He said, they'll all tell you, well, I have a better chance of getting a ring here.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. Ovechkin finally accomplished it. Like I said, he held the NHL record for scoring points and never being in a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
With over 600, Charlton, prior to getting to a Stanley Cup. So Alexander Ovechkin, congratulations, being best male athlete. You can always vote for the guy that you want, Charlton.
Yeah.
But one of the things about being the best is that you make everybody else around you better. And that's what Ovechkin did this year with the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everybody who gets up there obviously deserves something. I want to get your thoughts on something because the ESPYs, they have a different criteria than who votes for the MVP. We look at NBA basketball. We just talked about LeBron James. I'm impressed with LeBron, but if he shows up at Staples Center with ice blades, if he can play, I know Jordan tried to play baseball. I want to see if LeBron James can play ice down there with the LA hockey team, Bixie. That'd be incredible. But I look at what happened with the vote last night. LeBron James was voted best NBA player. I know that Harden is considered the MVP of the regular season league, and Durant got the MVP in the finals. But not that it's a political thought. You ask 10 people, you may get 10 different answers. But do you think that was a slight snub at Harden that the ESPYs gave LeBron James the best NBA player, even though the guy who won the MVP did it just about 30 days ago? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everybody was so critical about what occurred in the playoffs, LeBron lifting his team to the finals. But, when you look at these votes, Charlton, they're arbitrary.
Yep.
You say LeBron's the best NBA player. Kevin Durant was the best player in the finals.
Yeah.
James Harden was the best player in the regular season. So it's subjective anytime you see these votes. It's a popularity contest on who wants what.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people felt that they needed to repay LeBron because they had already given Harden the MVP halfway through the NBA season.
Yes.
And regardless of what LeBron did to uplift his team, getting them to fourth place in the division, Charlton, and into the Eastern Finals and the NBA Finals, Charlton.
Yep.
It had already been written in stone that Harden was going to be the MVP.
Yeah.
LeBron will always continue, Charlton, to be the spotlight of the NBA as long as he's willing to play.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
You're not going to displace him.
Yeah.
So that vote that he was the best NBA player, Charlton, is subjective because you have to look at other aspects. But he's always going to be a media darling.
You know how we talked about earlier in the I guess it was just yesterday. We're talking about it this week with the Major League Baseball All-Star Game and then the Home Run Derby. And there are a lot of people looking for Harper. He's a hometown kid. Of course, you got to make people feel good. But we always said, let's see how he bats when he's having, another Major League Baseball player pitch to him. And they voted Mike Trout, who I've been saying all along, and you've been saying all along, if not the best player, one of the top 2 or 3 guys in baseball. But he got that award. Tom Brady voted best NFL player. And then when you look at some of the women, I just think the fact that we had Maya Monroe, WNBA player. And then when you look at best female golfer, there's Sung Hyun Park. So for people who like golf, oftentimes the women are overlooked. Best female Olympian, Chloe Kim. But I think Sloane Stephens, when you look at best female tennis player, people might say, what? Don't they know Serena Williams is still playing tennis? What is it about Sloane? She looks like she could be the next making of a Serena Williams, but I wouldn't give her the best. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, she won that based on her victory at the U.S. Open last year. And you also got to remember, Serena Williams didn't compete in many tournaments because of her pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so the tennis circuit, just like the golf circuit is now, Charlton, was up for grabs.
Yeah.
If you had a couple highlight wins, Charlton, it was going to catapult you to the top of the heap.
Yep.
One of the things about sports, Charlton, is that we get stuck on veteran players.
Yeah.
Whether it's an individual sport, whether it's a team sport. We have this huge tendency to gravitate to the people that we have seen for some years.
Yeah.
Whether they're still at the top of the game or not. It's like Tiger. Tiger still commands the stage in golf.
Yep.
Even though he has not won a tournament. So these are the things you have to look at. And even in basketball, when you look at people sitting there and you got 3 different dominant players in basketball winning 3 different individual awards.
Yeah.
When you look at football and people say, okay, a lot of people say, well, Brady's not the best quarterback in the NFL. And, I'll compare that to a rivalry that's going on right now at Alabama. Alabama won the national championship last year.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts got them to the game.
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa won the game, Charlton, when Hurts was struggling. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles, Charlton. You had the young kid who had just gone through the season without a hiccup.
Yeah.
Blows out his knee.
Yep.
All of a sudden, Nick Foles come in. There's no controversy in Philadelphia, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about that. There's no minority quarterback in Philadelphia. There's a controversy at Alabama. There was a starting minority quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there at this contrast. It's like, okay, Carson Wentz didn't win the Super Bowl, didn't even play in the game. Nick Foles wins it, and he's still a backup quarterback.
That's incredible.
Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama comes into the game in the second half, takes over, leads the team to a victory. Jalen Hurts is 26-2 as a starter.
Wow.
And people are saying he should be benched.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how the table turns. When you make that comparison, you realize why would a guy that's 26-2 get benched because he had one bad game? But that's the way sports goes. I do want to say also that last night when they look at Nick Foles, they voted him best championship performance. And I'd be remiss without saying the best moment, Minnesota Vikings defeat of the New Orleans Saints. Had you ever seen that type of play? I'm sure we've seen it before. Maybe the sea of hands with the Oakland Raiders back in the day, Coliseum, Kenny Stabler back to pass. I think it was Anthony Davis in the corner of the end zone. And the sea of hands obviously made the catch. Clarence Davis, I believe, made the catch, and the Raiders went on to win.
Davis.
Yeah. And so would you relate that as a similar thing? They both won the game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I will go back to another Raider game, and when you look at Ghost to the Post, the Dave Casper against the Baltimore Colts in the Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, where the Raiders had to come from behind and win that game. Charlton, there's so many great games where, we can concentrate on that catch because people saw it on ESPN.
Yeah.
But what about the immaculate reception with Franklin Harris against the Raiders?
Yeah.
That catapulted the Steelers dynasty, even though they didn't make it to the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
That play still lives in infamy in many minds. Let's look at David Tyree in the Super Bowl with the Giants versus the Patriots, Charlton.
Yeah.
The helmet catch. Mario Manningham up the sideline took a couple of years later, Charlton, tippy-toeing down the sideline, making a catch. Charlton, the NFL is filled with such spectacular moments that it all depends on the individual and how much it showed on a highlight reel to make it the great catch. Think about the one-handed catch that Odell Beckham made on Monday Night Football, I believe it was, against the Dallas Cowboys.
That was incredible.
That just catapulted him to the top of the receiver echelon.
Yeah.
So we can go over time, year after year, Charlton, with receivers making these miraculous catches. We can go back to the first Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs, when we look at Boyd Dowd making these miraculous catches against the Kansas City Chiefs after being out partying all night long, Charlton, being the game's MVP.
Yeah.
So, it's about what people want to find in sports to make it great. And I'll give you one more in the Super Bowl. When you look at John Mackey in Super Bowl IV against the Dallas Cowboys, when Cliff Harris tipped the ball, it went over the middle, and he concentrated on it, caught it, took it in for the only touchdown of that game, Charlton, for the Baltimore Colts.
That's incredible knowledge, Big C. Love the history. I got to get me some more moonshine so I can get clairvoyant, Big C. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. To work with Ben and Mark, they've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro player, an NFL player, a high school player, even your mom and papa soccer leagues. And we're also endorsed by the NCAA. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. When you think about some numbers, Big C, 53 points, the most by an individual in WNBA. In a game set Tuesday, Liz Cambridge of Dallas, she went 17 to 22 in field goal attempts and 15 to 16 from the free throw line. The previous mark was 51 by Ronona Williams in 2013's. Big C, 53 points is a lot to get, especially when you don't shoot as many threes. She was driving to the basket, Big C. Your thoughts on that performance?
Well, she's a tall, statured woman, Charlton, and when you think about the WNBA, it's a fundamentally sound game.
Yeah.
What's sad, Charlton, is that the sports shows don't highlight that enough.
Yeah.
To show this record feat. Now, you think about an NBA player, if he goes out and scores 53 points. We hear about it all week, scoring 53 points. But a WNBA player sets the scoring record, single-game scoring record, you get it one night, Charlton.
Yeah.
I mean, move on from it like, it was no big deal. So, I mean, there's not a parity when it comes to representation of the genders in sports from the broadcast companies, Charlton, because they leave an amazing feat like that to a one-day highlight.
Yeah.
And if you missed it, you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
But these ladies deserve all the accolades in the world, Charlton, because they're competitive. They don't short the fans. They don't sit out and strike over money. They're not in there on contract disputes, Charlton. If a trade is there, they accept the trade and move on.
Yeah.
So they don't have the egotisticalness of the NBA, Charlton. And I think they don't get a fair shake through all the media outlets.
No, we know that's definitely true. For our friends across the pond, when we talk about who has the best wine or who has the best cheese, or for you good old boys down south, who has the best collard greens, we all know that. But we also know, according to my pastor friend, you want to see him grin? Talk about football or the tithe, and that's when you'll see him grin ear to ear, Big C. He really gets happy for that. I want to talk about a little bit of money, $4.8 billion. Jerry Jones boys, the Dallas Cowboys, claim the top spot in the annual list by Forbes magazine, the most valuable sports franchise in the universe. Big C, that's a lot of money, $4.8 billion. How much shine could you and Jerry toast to with $4.8 billion, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Jerry said he don't drink as much as he used to, okay? So,
he said he bought the Cowboys when he was inebriated, Big C.
Well, yeah, but he brought him to his senses, and so he cut down. He don't drink and drive, put it that way.
That's true.
He sits in the back seat of his helicopter when he got to go somewhere. And he likes that brown liquor anyway. He likes bourbon. He's a bourbon guy.
Yep.
But, you think about to have an American franchise valued at just under $5 billion.
Amazing, yeah.
the Cowboys have always carried the moniker as America's team.
Yeah.
You know, they're merchandising their extension, Charlton, throughout the world, not just America, but throughout the world.
Yeah.
It has driven the value of this franchise. Now, you also got to include in the price of that stadium.
Yeah.
AT&T is about $2 billion in value.
Yeah.
And this stadium is used all the time, Charlton, so it's constantly generating revenue. It's not just used for Cowboys games. It's in use, 250 days out of the year.
Yeah.
So it's consistent revenue for a lot of people who depend on that for their livelihood, Charlton. So Jerry Jones creates a lot of households' incomes in that Dallas-Fort Worth area, Charlton.
Yeah, he sure does.
But,
he does. Go ahead.
To have a sports franchise to get to that point, you talk about how big sports is in America all the time, Charlton, how it galvanizes. It galvanizes a lot with $4.8 billion.
Yeah, I would like to have $4.8 billion. Jerry Jones, we got to get you to throw some of that change at the Big C. What's it called? Big C? Big C? GoBigC.com or whatever it was. You go fund Big C. $4.8 billion. Congratulations, Jerry. That's a lot of money. For my friends in Europe, the European soccer teams, Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Barcelona, they're also bringing in a lot of money. But nobody tops the good old boy in Jerry Jones. Big C, I do want to bring up a couple of things happening in the sports universe. When we look at the NBA, a couple of things happened today. The Atlanta Hawks making some noise, making a trade with OKC. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they shipped off disgruntled guard Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
Now, they also drafted Trae Young, so you saw that the team was going in a different direction. They were going with a youth and three-point shooting team. They traded Schroeder to Oklahoma City, where they wanted to dump Carmelo Anthony. The Hawks are going to bring him in, but they're not going to keep him, Charlton. They're going to find a way to buy him out of this contract. He will be released. He'll never, dress up for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
Most likely, Charlton, it's just a bypass. He'll go through the airport there, and I think they have a connecting flight to Houston out there that he'll take.
I think it's the most trafficked one in the world. I think the heaviest traffic down there in Atlanta, Hartsville.
Yeah, well, Pat Jones was there with a lot of traffic on the fight last week. Adam Jones was. So,
yeah.
First time that he didn't get in trouble in a fight.
Yeah.
So, Carmelo Anthony just needs to stay off that same concourse that he was on so he won't get jumped off.
That's what you call fighting to get to your seat. Is that what it's called, Big C?
They reduced the size of these seats so much that it's making everybody disgruntled.
Yeah.
That's funny. So when we look at Carmelo, he'll be on the move, Charlton. He'll get a through ticket through Atlanta on to Houston, most likely.
Yeah.
But the problem with Anthony is that he doesn't want to be a sixth man.
No.
He didn't embrace that role in Oklahoma. You got to look at how can he embrace that role, in Houston.
Yeah.
I know that Ariza's gone, but his defense is not good enough, Charlton, to stand off the top players in the NBA now at that position, at the power forward position.
Yeah.
He's going to get used. So it's going to be interesting. You got to also think about this. D'Antoni was the coach at one point of the New York Knicks while Anthony was there.
Yeah.
They had a falling out when they had the Lynn Sanity thing going on there.
Yeah.
And they never rekindled that relationship. They were never able to put it back together. So it's going to be very interesting to say, everybody's saying that he's going to Houston, but D'Antonio is in Houston. And is D'Antonio willing to embrace Carmelo once again after they had the fallout in New York?
Well, he saw the Adam Pac-Man Jones fight. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they say, you know what? We don't need that drama, Big C, because sometimes you got to be careful when you burn bridges because you may have to recross them. And speaking of bridges, the Miami Dolphins announced today that anyone that takes exercises their First Amendment, the right of freedom of speech and religion, and you can do what you want to do. It's not breaking the law, but they said something I thought was very foolish and maybe even asinine, threatening if anything. And talk about being sober when you make choices. They're saying they can punish any one of their players, Miami Dolphins, up to 2 weeks if they take a knee to do the national anthem, or if they protest. And again, I'm torn a little bit, Big C. Because last night we saw the Me Too movement. That was nothing for people to say, we don't want to see that. When I saw what's going on with Kelly and his health issues and bringing attention to cancer awareness, and ESPN's raised $80 million that they were talking about, $80 million. That's not sports related. It's for a human cause. So when we want to end domestic abuse, racial intolerance, discrimination, racism, sexism, all those things, why do the Dolphins want to punish their players when they do what was done on the ESPYs last night? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Chauncey, when I look at what the Dolphins are talking about, is they're talking about racial and social profiling. Is what they're being discriminatory. You think about it, a professional league in the NFL in America being discriminatory versus its employees. That's what this is all about, Charlton. You know, these players are not advocating violence, disordinance, or anything, Charlton. They're advocating for equality. And you would think that the NFL of all leagues would embrace that, is that they would want equality. Not just with their players, Charlton, but with the American citizens and the fans.
You would think.
But they're saying something totally different than what the players are standing for, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been a long time since there was been a strike in the NFL, Charlton. I believe about 87 was the last time that there was a strike. But it would, you know, do me much joy that on opening Sunday, Charlton, in the NFL, is that all the players decide to take a knee. What would the league do at that point? Are you going to suspend everybody 2 to 4 games that took a knee? All of a sudden, we're talking about scab football all over again, Charlton?
Yeah.
You know, are we going to bring in the scabs? Because that's what it's going to lead you. If you think about it, if half the rosters, just the minority players alone, took a knee in the NFL games, and people want to say, well, they're anti-military, anti-flag. I think we just saw that in some moves from Washington where you were talking about anti-military when you stopped the, you know, international war practices that you had down in South Korea. Yeah. That you stopped this interaction with the NATO militaries. That's against the military, Charlton, if anything, and against the flag about the safety of America. That you embrace the leader of a tyrant leader of another country, Charlton. That the U.S. is ostracized. So when you want to talk about against the flag and against the military, let's look at really who's against it. The NFL players don't have that much power, Charlton.
I think the thing that hurts some of the NFL owners is that most of the players are African American, and throughout the history, even going back to Rosa Parks and Dr. King, when a black American says we want to end racism and discrimination and sexism and all the isms, some people say, yeah, but we don't want to talk about it now. Just shut up and play. Just shut up and dribble. I didn't come here to watch you tell me how you want equality for your kids and for you. Just play the sport. You're my entertainment. And I think that's a shame because the Me Too movement got a rousing applause last night for saying we got to cure these ills. And most of those women were athletes. And people stood up and gave them a standing ovation. There are more African-American athletes in the NFL than had the Me Too movement on the stand last night at the ESPYs. Why does one get a national applause and the others call SOBs and just shut up and play? I think that's deep, especially when Steve Keim, general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, okay, this is a social movement also. He was busted on a DUI, gets 2 days in jail. You think they're going to keep him out of the league, Big C? People have fatalities based on DUI, not taking a knee saying let's end domestic violence and racism. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about how stupid that is. You're in this day of transportation, whether it's Uber, whether it's Lyft, whether it's share ride, whether it's limo service, Charlton. It's there. You go out and you get behind the wheel with a blood alcohol of 1.9, Charlton. That's attempted murder. Yeah. At least attempted manslaughter. That's what that is. This is where Steve Keim was, Charlton. And he's going to be patted on the back. You know, he said, well, we're going to fine him $200,000. Yep. We're going to donate that money to MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Yeah. He's not going to stop drinking, Charlton. No. That's like saying Jim Irsay was going to stop drinking and taking OxyContin. Yep. You know, because the NFL suspended him. Yeah. They didn't cut off his supply. That's what they don't understand. They don't cut off these owners and management supplies. Now, you're an NFL player. You go out, get a DUI, you're potentially gone for the year, Charlton. Of course. 5 or 6 games, potentially gone for the year if you don't get cut. Yeah, that's true. So you think about that. There's a double standard. That's a social injustice to allow a drunk. Think about it. He's a drunk.
Yeah.
Okay, and here it is. He's the same guy that would be responsible for finding the players on the team, Charlton.
Yep.
If they did something, they say inappropriate.
Yep.
He's the guy who finds them. He's the guy who releases them from their contract.
Now,
So you're telling me that a drunk individual should be in charge of millionaires? Think about that.
That's a good point, Big C. Another twist of irony. For all the people that say, we don't want you taking the knee to bring attention to end sexual assault, don't bring attention to the Me Too movement or discrimination or racial profiling, don't do that. But wasn't Bidwell the one that says he doesn't want players showing any type of display of being inclusive or being conscious or activist on his football team? But doesn't...
Excuse me one second. Now, you said Bidwell, didn't you?
I think that's his name, yeah.
Now, he's the same guy that signed Steve Keim's contract, isn't he?
I think so. Well, hold on, let me Google it. Yep. My Google said, yeah, Big C.
So he hires an alcoholic
Yep.
and tells him to control the minority players
Those SOBs.
and fine and suspend them if they do anything socially
Yes.
in representation of the team.
Exactly.
So, but it's okay to be an alcoholic
And
and
drive.
represent the team in public
And
go
drive.
out and drive and endanger American lives.
Yeah.
I'm getting the picture now.
Now, when you think about that, too, for everyone that says, well, tell those SOBs to just shut up and play, just Google those two gentlemen we just talked about. It's never been about the flag. What do the NFL players and a lot of the African-American players stand up for? And some of our white brethren, too, they just don't come out as in the forefront. They're not the vanguards. Ohio State's doctors. Ohio State's probably going to compete for another Big Ten championship, maybe national championship, because they do it every year. It's just like the sun's going to rise. Ohio State's going to be competing for a championship someplace. Their doctors were hit with 2 lawsuits today, as well as the administration, Big C, about what NFL players take a knee over sexual misconduct by the medical staff. Now, who doesn't trust the doctor? Up to 2,500 male athletes. Congressman Jim Jordan, a Republican, was on the staff, administrative staff at Ohio State at the time. So when African-American athletes say, stand up, take a knee, we want to bring attention to how we end this, one of America's finest athletic institutions, Ohio State, today. Now, are they supposed to shut up too, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm starting to think that this is a Big Ten culture of sexual, misconduct with medical staff. We saw this in Michigan State, led by Larry Nassar and a host of others that covered it up. But here's Ohio State, and that was female athletes. These are male athletes, Charlton,
Yeah.
that have been sexually mistreated. And we talk about it because of both sides. You brought that up months ago, Charlton, that not just women are sexually, offended, males are also. And here's living proof of it, that athletes have filed this suit that includes over 2,500 male athletes at Ohio State over the past couple decades, Charlton,
Yeah.
that have been sexually offended by this medical staff. And Ohio State has already set aside a slush fund, just like they did in Michigan State, to handle these lawsuits, Charlton, because they know that this has occurred.
Yep.
But when you think about the administration knowing this, Charlton, and Jim Jordan, who's now a senator,
Yeah.
a Republican senator from Ohio, was on the academic staff, administrative staff at Ohio State at the time. Here's a guy who is controlling part of America's future,
Yeah.
voting against and for things that all Americans don't want. But here it is, he's part of a cover-up, Charlton, of sexual misconduct. So how can this man go in and govern and even stay in his elected position, Charlton,
Yeah.
being part of a cover-up of sexual misconduct of this heinous way, Charlton, and of these exorbitant numbers over the decades under his watch while he was at Ohio State?
That's a very good point. So I want all of our brethren to realize, because it's the African Americans that get chastised when anyone says, we don't want to hear that stuff, we just want to watch you play the game. The Me Too movement, standing ovation. Majority Caucasian women. Take a knee, stand up for social equality, primarily African American. They're told, get those SOBs out of the country for trying to make people safe. Sports is a religion. If you don't know that, you better recognize But at the same time, we should use whatever means necessary, as Malcolm X told us, to bring about equality. And for a lot of African Americans, their biggest pulpit they're going to have is a sports league. So I'm proud of conscientious people, and I'm proud of what happened last night at the ESPYs. I just hope that at some point in time, mainstream brethren will hold other mainstream people accountable when black men stand up and black women stand up and say, let's end social injustice, we get shouted down. When our white female brethren stand up who got equality based on blacks marching in the civil rights movement, they get a standing ovation. Big C, as we go to Scotland, we have some good old boys playing golf for the British. Do you like tea, Big C? What do you drink in your tea, Big C? Do you drink it with sugar or just straight, Big C? Your thoughts?
I like mine straight, with a little kicker on the back end, so
yeah.
Just to soothe it out a little bit,
Yep.
Make sure that I stay warm while I'm drinking it.
Yep, I understand. Kisner has the lead the British Open, 5 under, first round, 3 shots ahead of a group of 5 golfers. I think about the friend Tiger Woods, playing even. Right now he's tied for 32nd. Will hopefully make the cut going into the weekend. But golf is always great. Across the pond, they have their own tradition. I think St. Andrews is where golf originally started, but this one here is the British Open in Scotland and the Quicken Loans tournament. I just want to get your thoughts on whether or not Tiger competes or not. Are we still feeling that golf is still that upper echelon sport the way we know football is so exciting? And football is played on a weekly level, at least for a season. Golf is played year-round. What can golf do to get even more exciting as we see Tiger Woods not cracking that top 5 for a long time? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, golf is sitting in the state that it is. Because it's a who's who on the weekend. Who's going to come up this week? No one can sit there and say that there's a dominant golfer in the world anymore, Charlton. We see guys be competitive on a weekly basis.
Yep.
But we don't see guys winning back-to-back tournaments, Charlton, even challenging in back-to-back tournaments. That's where golf is kind of losing its mystique right now.
Yeah.
Is that the guys that you want to see win, that the galleries are following,
yep,
they're not pushing the curve, Charlton. They're not being competitive. When they're not in the top 10 in that first day, Charlton,
yep,
golf has kind of lost it. And everybody's just hoping, as you said, they make the cut and can play over the weekend.
Yeah.
That's where golf is, Charlton. It's in such a state right now that you're sitting up waiting on the old timers to show up to give you something to cheer for.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Big 3 basketball league.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I don't know what's going to change it. I don't know if it's going to change because there's one thing about golf that I do like. I love watching the old timers, whether it's Phil or whether it's Tiger or anybody that we like seeing, even Trevino back in the day. No one's going to beat Jack's record. Tiger's probably going to beat that record at some point in time if he keeps that fire in him. And I'm still going to give him a year past the surgery before he starts winning. But we know there's a lot of good things happening in our world of sports. Golf still has that appeal where it can go anywhere in the world and people love it a lot like soccer. How is it that it can transcend different continents and still be one of the most favorite sports when people show up, even though it may not be the most viewed sport? It is something that people play all over the world. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, like soccer, it is an international game. And when you look at the PGA Tour, you see representations of many countries from around the world on the planet, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's why golf can compete in the mainstream, is because it's not just watched here in the U.S., Charlton. It'll be looked at in Australia. It'll be looked at in England, Charlton.
Yep.
It'll be looked at in France. It'll be looked at in Canada. All around Mexico, Charlton. We have representation. It's a multicultural sport. And when you looked at the PGA and you spoke about the best female golfer,
yeah,
she was out of Asia, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is a game that resonates around the world. And so that's what's good and solid about it. It doesn't have social barriers, doesn't have racial barriers, Charlton. Golf is just competitive. It's you, a stick, and a little white ball and a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And who can find it the most often?
Yeah. And who can find it? It reminded me of Caddyshack where that gopher kept finding all the balls and you have the great actors that are out there trying to find it. Golf can be like that. It can be a fun game, but it can also be a game that drives you nuts, Big C. So we've talked about the Me Too movement. Love what happened at the ESPYs. Talked a little bit of NFL football coming up, some college sports. Talked about let's find a way to say that people can be conscious. We don't want a bunch of dumb guys running around playing sports. If you can let guys have DUIs on your payroll, let guys stand up and say let's end racism and domestic violence. I don't think that's too much to ask. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Charlton, what I'm looking forward to is the day that I can turn on the screen and I'm not hearing them talk about athletes' money.
Yeah.
That I'm hearing them talking about athletes being people and how they affect and assist their communities. I want to hear that. I want the sports shows one day, Charlton, to just say, hey, we're not going to talk about the dollar signs. We're going to talk about the social impact with athletes, whether they're college, whether they're professional, whether they're high school, Charlton. They are involved in their communities to help make their communities better.
I think that's very well said. We also look forward to that, too. And every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.